Thank you.
I'd like to welcome everyone today. Most of us are in love with Herrin Hospital. It's part of all of our lives in one way or another. And I started to work there in 1964. So anyway, we have some board members here. Could you stand up or raise your hand, or so if you have any suggestions, problems, or whatever, please let us know. If there's any programs that you might be interested in, and but without further ado, I turn. Oh, if you didn't sign in, please sign this paper on your way out. And how many are, this is the first time here for a lecture? Great, we need to keep this going. We're growing. We have anywhere from 50 to 75. We've even had one that had 100 people that came. And but we're really proud of getting this started. And so I'd like to turn it over to Cheryl.
My first question is, if you were born at Herrin Hospital, raise your hand. How many do we have in the room that were born? There's two. And I know when they stopped delivering babies, many of us lamented that fact because our children then could not have the babies, but we have a great OB/GYN over at Memorial Hospital in Carbondale. We are very fortunate today to, while Cookie said many of us are in love with Herrin Hospital, this woman certainly is in love with Herrin Hospital. She's a longtime Herrin native. She has a great Italian name, Cerruti, so, which represents many of us who have Italian heritage in Herrin. And Kathy is a lifelong resident. This has been her main career. It is her career at Herrin Hospital. She's a long-standing career employee there. She works in the administration as a physician liaison and public relations. And once she begins to speak, you know why she has the position that she has. She is aptly placed in her career choice at Herrin Hospital. She works very closely with Herrin Hospital Auxiliary. And I would like anybody who is a member of the auxiliary from Herrin Hospital, and we appreciate your coming today, if you would stand. Herrin Hospital Auxiliary. Raise your hand. You and Wilma stood for all of us. Kathy has strong ties through the community, which help her as a physician liaison to work with physicians in their offices and their staff. I know she has recommended physicians to all of us. She recommends where physicians can live and where they can dine. And so she goes from the small to the large problems or even solutions that we have at the hospital. Kathy is a member of Our Lady of Mount Carmel Church. She is a rather recent elected board member to the Herrin Chamber of Commerce, which all of us have been very appreciative of. She is a member of the Herrin Rotary Club, and she is a member of Gamma Xi, which is a local and international sorority in America. She enjoys giving back to the community that comes to our hospital, and she has brought with her today as a guest is Teresa Lavalette. I'm going to have her stand because she works behind the scenes at the hospital, Teresa, so turn around so they can see your face. She's the Human Resource Director, which means she can hire and fire, so you want to suck up a little bit. She has been with SIH since 1989, but she has been in her position as the Director of Human Resources at Herrin Hospital since 2002, which this year means she's been 10 years with us, a decade. Pretty soon she will be decades old, like many of us in this room. So, it is with great pleasure that I present to you our speaker today for the guest lecture series, who have come out on this very hot day, Kathy, to see you and to listen to you, Kathy Cerruti.
Cheryl is right. I feel like I'm the poster child for Herrin Hospital. I've grown up there. I was 18 years old when I started, and I'm just a couple years older than that now, and have been there for many, many years. And I love that hospital. I've grown up in that hospital. I get weepy when I talk about that hospital because the people there were like family. And I just don't say that lighthearted. We come together in births, we come together in weddings and happiness that happens to people, and we've come together in tragedy and in death. And I'm telling you, there's no better people that work at that facility. It's like a community within a community. As I said, there's a lot of, Cheryl said there's a lot of auxiliary members here. There's a lot of past and present employees here today that work there now, and I'm sure they can reiterate what I say. It's a wonderful place to work, obviously. I've been there many, many years, and I think our community is extremely fortunate to have this facility in our town, and for area municipalities to have something of this magnitude in a small rural hospital. And I just want to give you a little insight as to how we got to where we are today. On the front page, I'm going to go through from 1914 to 2012, and it's not going to, be that boring, so I'll try to go be as thorough as I can. And I'll get to this picture later on in the presentation. Something that's very sad about us is that no one kept good archives. So when Carl called me to ask me if I would do this, I got kind of panicky because I'm like, where am I going to find the information? Where am I going to find pictures? Because there really isn't that many. And unlike St. Joe's, who is a sister hospital in our organization, who was run by nuns, they have scrapbook after scrapbook after album of archives. So we're going to have to get some of their help over there to help us get this organized. I'm going to start out in, this is from the archives of Herrin Hospital, and most of the information that I got that I'm going to present to you today, Leo Brown. Leo Brown was one of the owners of Herrin Hospital in the mid-40s. He wrote a book in the 80s, and some of this information that I'm going to present to you came from Dr. Brown's book. So I had to kind of plagiarize some of the dates because we are 2012 versus 1980. So these are the archives. This is a thumbnail history of the progress made by the admirable institution. From the very modest beginning, the Herrin Hospital has kept pace with the rapid growth of Herrin and has grown into a modern, fully equipped, 114-bed Grade A hospital. The hospital was built in 1914 by the late Dr. Griff Baker. His son, Carl Baker, who is also deceased, and Dr. William R. Gardner of Herrin aided in the beginning of the Herrin Hospital. The original name of the hospital was Baker Gardner Hospital, and the first baby born in the hospital was named William Baker Gardner. Only the first floor was finished at that time. Dr. Griff Baker died soon after the building was finished, and the hospital was operated by Dr. Carl Baker and Dr. William Gardner until 1918, when it was acquired by the late J.T. Black. He changed the name to Herrin Hospital. Dr. Black finished the second story and operated the institution until February 16th of 1934, when Dr. Columbus Brown and Dr. Frank C. Murrah of Herrin purchased the property and continued to operate it as Herrin Hospital. They moved their offices into the hospital and operated the hospital until October of 1934, when Dr. Brown retired from the firm and moved back to his offices in the Herrin building. Therefore, Herrin Hospital has been operated continuously as a hospital in the same spot for 98 years. No other hospital throughout all of Southern Illinois can equal this duration of service. When one considers the significant part played by the hospital building during all of the Herrin riots, gang wars that went on and around Herrin during the late teens and 20s, one is impressed with the fact that the hospital is still standing and still serving sick people, still an object of praise or debate, and probably will continue to be indefinitely. Perhaps no other building in all of Southern Illinois has known the machine gunning of warring gangland factions and has known the compassion exhibited by the doctors, nurses, and the public for almost a century. We've known the joys and sorrows of birth and death to such a degree, have known the willingness to serve mankind, unfortunates, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days of the year. Patients, doctors, nurses, technicians, and the general public have come and gone, but the Herrin Hospital continues undaunted and ready to serve. Picture number 3 is Dr. Murrah, Frank Murrah, who was one of the founding fathers of the hospital. And there's someone in here who worked very closely with Dr. Murrah, and that's Mary Fox, who worked for him for a long time until he sold the hospital. So please correct me, Mary, if I make any mistakes on this. This is information that was gathered from the Herrin Daily Journal from 1937. The basement, and you can probably look in at this front picture, and this picture, I think, was taken probably in the 30s. Housed the offices of Dr. Frank Murrah and also the hospital offices. There was a laundry in the basement and also a very fine sanitary kitchen. An auxiliary laundry was housed in the rear lot behind the hospital. Extensive electric refrigeration kept the food chilled to the proper temperature, and special diets were given to all patients according to the orders of the attending physician. On the first floor is an operating room for minor cases. There is also a ward with 4 beds which were rented at a slightly lower scale than the private room. The second floor had 20 beds. Now remember, we have 114 now. The operating room for major cases was also on the second floor. While the hospital was privately owned, it was open to any physician in the coal fields that were entitled to use its facilities. The Herrin Hospital was the only hospital in Williamson County and was used by the physicians throughout the county for their more serious surgical injury patients. A large staff of nurses and supervisors were on hand at all times, and a number of outside registered nurses were available when required by the patients. The maternity ward was very modern in every aspect and was being used more and more by all of the physicians in the county. More than 50 babies had been born in the maternity ward the first year it was opened in 1937. Nearly all of the mines in the vicinity sent their injury cases to the hospital, and the Herrin institution has enjoyed a big business from all over the coal fields. The Herrin Hospital is located centrally in the city of Herrin and was the only hospital in Williamson County in 1937. Dr. Frank Murrah purchased the hospital along with Columbus Brown in February of 1925. Dr. Columbus Brown retired and left Dr. Murrah the sole owner of the hospital in 1934. Dr. Murrah had an extremely difficult time in getting financing for the payroll, equipment, utilities, etc. during the Depression. The entire area of Southern Illinois was extremely depressed during the 30s because of the bad experience of the coal mines. The employees were never certain of their jobs from one hour to the next. Some worked split shifts, some worked part-time, some worked with little or no pay. Dr. Murrah borrowed money from all private sources he could, including cash value of his own life insurance, in order to keep the hospital open. Dr. Murrah did most of the major surgery involved. He had additional surgeons to assist him. Dr. Lewis, W.I. Lewis, a Herrin physician who was a member of the American College of Surgeons and was always willing and able to help in all surgical cases. During the 20s and the 30s, there was a great social upheaval in Williamson County and Franklin counties, and the competition and ill feeling was on many different issues. Rival gangs of the Ku Klux Klan and anti-Klan, the local and foreign-born, Protestant and Catholic, Democrat and Republican, wet and dry, etc. The Herrin Hospital was a treatment center for many patients who were in the terrible tornado of 1925, in which nearly 1,000 people lost their lives. This is, let's see, in picture number 4. This is a picture of what the surgery, the OR looked like in 1937, which it was on the second floor of the 1914 building, and it was just a couple of rooms. So, I mean, to see where we've come now, from then to what we have now, to me is just totally, amazing and mind-boggling. Pictures, let's see. I've got another, picture number 5. I found this, rummaging, several years ago, this person's family member mailed this to me. This was an invoice from 1929 for what a surgery cost. It was a fracture. The surgery was $50. The operating room was $5. The anesthesia was $5. The room in the hospital for 20 days was $60. Treatment in the hospital was $5. An x-ray was $5. And the total amount of the bill at that time was $130. Which, back then, I'm sure $130 was like $130,000, at this time. But it's just amazing, that, and when I found this, I couldn't believe that I actually kept this and found it stashed away. But just to give you an inkling as to, what hospitals were back in 1929 versus what they are now. The fee schedules for services in the hospital were absolutely unbelievable by today's standards. For example, $4 per day for a private room, and this included your medicine, your dressings, etc. Operating room cost was $10. Administration of anesthesia, $10. Obstetric cases got 2 weeks in the hospital plus a delivery fee for $75. Most of Dr. Murrah's surgical fees were in the neighborhood of $100, and all of this in the day when there was a graduated income tax, when the hospital corporation was a for-profit. House calls were around $4, and this also included the medicine that they prescribed you. As the years went by, Dr. Murrah became increasingly tired of a long schedule, starting to work at 7 a.m. and holding office hours as late as 11 p.m. As he began to tire, he began to look around to see if there was any interested parties or parties who might take over the hospital. Inasmuch as he owned it, it was his prerogative to sell it. There were those church groups who considered the hospital, hoping to receive it for nothing, but were unable to provide a sufficiently skilled group of ancillary personnel to operate the hospital properly. Pictures 6, 7, and 8 are also some of our founding fathers. Into this uncertain situation, Dr. Leo Brown came to Herrin Hospital one night at Dr. Murrah's invitation to present a program on radiology, in which was his specialty. Dr. Brown was the first certified radiologist in all of Southern Illinois. Dr. Murrah cautiously mentioned that the hospital was for sale. Dr. Brown thought nothing of this, but did mention it in an incidental conversation to his friend, John Lewis, who immediately responded, "Let's buy it." I asked Dr. Lewis, "What will we do for money?" Dr. Lewis said, "Call the man. We'll get the money." I still don't know who the man is, but I then called Dr. Murrah and found out that he was asking the sum of $105,000. Dr. John Lewis was listening in and asked Dr. Murrah if he would give the Drs. Brown, Lewis, and Taylor an option to buy 90 days for a $100 deposit. Dr. Murrah thought that was rather unusual, but he said, "Sure, why not?" At any rate, the verbal commitment was made, and it then fell upon the young Carbondale doctors, all three who had been away for several years during military service in World War II to raise the money. They were finally able to borrow enough money to purchase the hospital from Dr. Murrah. The terms of the sale were such that Dr. Murrah would give title to the hospital, which was a stock corporation for profit, and would provide a clear title with the stipulation that he would still remain the chief of staff as long as he desired. This request was met immediately. An RN at that time was paid $125 per month. Key personnel were making $75 to $100 per month after 20 years of service. Basic floor help was paid $75 per month. There was absolutely no job descriptions in those days. Employees did whatever had to be done. They worked 12-hour shifts. It was routine for the nurses to also prepare the food for the patients. Each partner put up their own assets and each borrowed an identical sum of money to pay Dr. Murrah for the hospital. Dr. Murrah and Mr. O.W. Lyerla were close friends. Dr. Murrah assisted the very aggressive, efficient, and determined Chamber of Commerce of Herrin to bring industries into Herrin, which at that time was a dying town. The gentlemen of the chamber relied heavily upon Mr. Lyerla and upon Dr. Murrah, and they were very effective in bringing in permanent plants, having a payroll for the citizens of Herrin. Dr. Murrah continued to act as chief of staff for several years and was given the full run of the hospital. The managing group of doctors continued to recommend an open staff for everyone. Dr. Brown was the radiologist and proceeded to enlarge and initiate many new services in the X-ray department. Dr. Murrah continued to see patients in the basement of the hospital, where he had office space for decades. He finally decided to move out of the hospital and into a new building just 2 blocks away from the hospital. He stated it cost a lot more than the sale of the hospital produced. Dr. Murrah continued to practice medicine and do surgery until his late 70s, at which time he became physically and mentally incapacitated to practice medicine. He eventually passed away in the VA hospital in St. Louis. The hospital at that time consisted of 7 ancillary members and 15 nursing staff members. Can you imagine? A few of the other physicians that were at Herrin Hospital were Dr. Carl Baker. He was a general practitioner in Marion. Dr. J.T. Black, who was part owner for a while of the hospital. Columbus Brown, who was a general practitioner. Dr. J.T. Hyslop, he was a mind physician. E.C. Duncan, which was a general practitioner. He retired shortly before the acquisition of the hospital. Dr. E.L. Henning, who was an ear, nose, and throat specialist, and Dr. J.W. Tidwell, who was a general practitioner in obstetrics. On page 9, I don't know, maybe some of you can help us. This was the board in the late 70s. On the left to right, it was Frank Samuel, Orrin Stopler, Judge Paul Murphy, Roger Hendricks, Dr. Tim Castro, Mr. Walker, Jerry Hickam, who was our CFO at the time, Larry File, who was the administrator at the time. Then at the bottom in front of Mr. File, I think it's Craig Flatch from Carterville. No?
I think he was president of the Security Bank.
Gene Duguid? Okay.
Yeah.
And next to him was Clem Lanzini. Next to
Jean
Clem.
is on the other end. Jean is
She's
on
going
the
the wrong,
left.
she's going the wrong direction.
Okay. This is Gene Duguid?
Yes.
Okay, and then Bertha Goodrich. And then Clem Lanzini. And then, do you know who that? I thought that was Craig. Nope.
I don't know.
Okay, I thought it was Craig Flatch from Carterville, who was the funeral director at the time. Bertha Goodrich. Bertha Goodrich worked at the hospital beginning in 1929. Her various service and information is recorded on a bronze plaque in what used to be the main waiting room of the Goodrich Edition. Bertha worked through the various capacities, the same as her sister Josephine, ahead of her. She worked in various jobs, beginning as a telephone operator, working up to being the administrator, and as the business manager. She also became a Board of Trustee member in the late 60s. Bertha, more than anyone else, at the time of her administratorship, was responsible for the smooth running of the hospital. One of her great contributions was to collect the payments from bills. This was a sore point with many members of the community, but Bertha insisted that both the inpatient and outpatient bills were to be kept as current as possible, and it was her devotion to this rather unpleasant side of being an administrator that made it possible for Carbondale to have their hospital. When Bertha was on the hospital board, she was the only non-family member of the board. All others were from the Lewis and Taylor families. Therefore, the fact that they practiced at Carbondale solely made them interested in spending the most of the available funds at the Carbondale Hospital rather than the Herrin Hospital. Another great characteristic of Bertha's service was that she had the respect of absolutely everyone. She earned this respect, and it was evident in the good behavior and smooth operation of the employees in the hospital. Bertha was very well paid for her services, and she was appreciated by the Board of Trustees. I don't know if any of you had the pleasure of knowing Bertha or meeting Bertha, but you better listen to what Bertha said, because if you didn't, yeah, she did rule with an iron hand. She was actually there when I started working there. Larry File. Larry File was the first really professional trained hospital administrator at Herrin Hospital. He received his master's degree in special training and proved to be an incredibly, remarkably capable administrator. He established good hospital policies and procedures and was always trying to keep the peace with the city fathers. Mr. File was a very self-effacing and modest man and achieved the impossible in the proper conduct. He also exhibited this in his relationship with the staff and the Board of Trustees. He had the position to oversee and conduct the construction of many of the additions to the hospital, plus the acquisition of the top-of-the-line equipment in various departments. Herrin Hospital was indeed fortunate to have Larry File as its administrator from 1968 until his retirement in 1994. There's been a lot of people that come through the doors of that hospital that had an extreme impact on our facility. This is just to name a few. Jessie Mann Vick. Jessie was an RN. She was X-ray laboratory. Alberta Racine Simpson. She started the medical records, which is now health information. Josephine Goodrich, which was Bertha's sister, worked in many capacities in the hospital. She began her career in 1924, making $5 per week. In 1944, she went to making $75 per week. She cooked, she waited on patients, she did the laundry, she did janitorial work. Peggy Fossey. Peggy Fossey began in 1940 and worked for Dr. Murrah, then becoming the office manager of the X-ray department, and served in this capacity for many years. She is also the mother of Leanne Jones, who is presently our nurse exec at our facility. Verdine Zielinski. Verdine began her employment in 1955, and in 1966, she spearheaded a new department called Central Supply, Warehousing and Materials Management, until her retirement. Joe Hutchcraft. Joe was recruited in 1966 to set up one of the first departments in the area for inhalation therapy, now known as respiratory therapy. Over the years, he helped develop the departments of cardiology, pulmonology, cardiology rehabilitation, and the respiratory disease clinic, and the absolute first black lung clinic in Southern Illinois. Imogene Harris. Imogene Harris worked for Bertha in the business office for many, many years. Mary Selena Fox started her career for Dr. Murrah. The latter worked in the business office, eventually becoming the manager of the department until her retirement. Mary is also now one of our Herrin Hospital auxiliary members and works countless hours still at our hospital. Next is Dr. Watson Miller. Dr. Watson Miller was one of the first surgeons who came to Herrin. Herrin Hospital, as so much than any other physician who has ever worked at the hospital, He brought in a new dimension to surgery in Southern Illinois that he, at one time, was the principal surgeon in 10 local area hospitals. He was the first certified board surgeon in the history of Southern Illinois. Dr. Miller's death created a void in the surgical department that will probably never be completely filled. Dr. Miller trained for 7 years at Cook County Hospital in Chicago and was board certified in general surgery. He rapidly rose to the peak of surgery service and began doing extensive operative procedures at Herrin and then area hospitals far beyond what had ever been attempted before. For example, in the Herrin Hospital, he performed the first total pneumocotomy, the first triple injury of the spleen, stomach, and liver, the first facial reconstruction using the ribs to replace the timorous mandible, which is the jawbone, and the list goes on and on. Not only did he do these difficult and extensive procedures, but he did them extremely well with outstanding outcomes. He soon became to be known as the doctor's doctor. He began to travel to area hospitals throughout the area in this effort. He usually took with him his operating room nurse, Sue Beisel Miller, to set up everything to his liking. She had been a surgical nurse at Chicago Cook County Hospital for many years beforehand. There was 1 year that Dr. Miller performed over 1,000 major surgeries and 1,500 minor surgeries in this area in 1 year. Many excellent surgeons have come to the area after Dr. Miller showed the way, but he was the first. Carl Meyer, director of the world's largest hospital, Cook County Hospital in Chicago, told me personally that Watson Miller was the best trainee he had ever had in his 50 years at Cook County Hospital. Dr. Miller also served as major domo at Herrin Hospital and at times acting administrator. Dr. Miller's service at Herrin Hospital was so prolonged and so outstanding that the surgery suite was named after him. You know, when you look back from this to present day, Dr. Miller, Dr. Roth were the two major surgeons at our facility. These gentlemen did everything. You know, now you have to have a specialty for everything. You know, if a bone breaks, you go to an orthopedic surgeon. If you have to have a hysterectomy, you go see a gynecologist. If you have part of your stomach has to be taken out, you go to gastroenterology. These two men, Dan Roth and Watson Miller, did everything. Those two men, I can vouch, and I'm sure Mary can also, literally gave their lives to that hospital. Their families suffered, their children suffered because they were literally at that hospital 24/7 because it was only the two of them, and they did everything. Looking back now, knowing what types of surgeries that they did at that time, they were so far beyond their years, and for us to have these gentlemen of that magnitude do what they did was just unbelievable at the time. So our hospital's been very, very fortunate with the physicians that we've had there. Some of the other long-term physicians that we've had were James Gladson, he was a general practitioner, Dr. Ruprecht, who was a general practitioner from Johnston City. James Phelps was an anesthesiologist. He was the first one that Herrin Hospital ever had. Richard Maulding was an anesthesiologist. He and Dr. Phelps became a team, and he became the head of the surgery department when Dr. Phelps moved to St. Louis. Dr. Tim and Josie Castro, who specialized in family practice and surgery. Dr. Josie was a pediatric physician. Bill Hayes was a general practitioner. Dr. Promote, internal medicine. Tom Minitry was a radiologist. David Sloan was a radiologist. H.G. Dietrich was a general practitioner. Herbert Fine, general practitioner. Dr. Roth, general surgery. Basil Moskoff, general practitioner. The Doctors Canes were 3 generations of physicians. R.L. Kane, his son Wendell Kane, and Wendell's son R.D. Kane. Roger Hendricks was a general practitioner. There's one other, all of these physicians, you know, I mean, they gave their lives to their profession. But one that stands out is Herbert Fine. Dr. Fine, he lived it, he talked it. He was an example of why you should go into medicine. His patients came before his family did. There's a lady here, Joy Roth, can attest to that. Yes. On Thursdays, Dr. Fine's office was closed, and he may see up to 50 to 60 patients in our emergency room on that day. He never, ever turned anyone down. He had a hand radio in his car that his wife was Esther, that he would call her and tell her, I'm on my way home. But God only knows what would happen from Herrin to Carterville, that sometimes he just never quite got there. He was always called back to the hospital. But I can tell you our emergency room is named after Dr. Fine. And this gentleman, and he was truly a gentleman, lived it and breathed medicine. And he was just an outstanding gentleman, and I can attest to that. We have now, remember, we only had Dr. Roth and Dr. Miller as surgeons, and we only had just 7, 9, 10 physicians. We now have 231 credentialed physicians at our facility. This includes hospitalists, emergency room physicians, radiologists, and anesthesiologists. But we also, who comes to our facility, cardiovascular disease, dermatology, endocrinology, family practice, gastroenterology, gynecology, hematology, oncology, infectious disease, internal medicine, intervention cardiology, nephrology, neurology, ophthalmology. Did you ever think that there were so many ologies? Otolaryngology, pain management, pathology, physical medicine, rehabilitation, podiatry, psychiatry, pulmonology, rheumatology, surgery, bariatric, surgery general, orthopedic surgery, oral surgery, plastic surgery, thoracic surgery, urology, and wound care, and the list goes on. People, we're a small, rural hospital in southern Illinois. That's unbelievable. I think that's just fabulous. You do not have to go to a big city to receive good health care. You can receive good health care here in Herrin, Illinois. We save lives in Herrin, Illinois, all the time. Sometimes people think that you get better care in a big city hospital versus a small rural hospital. Not necessarily. Talk to people who've gone to city hospitals, and they're like, why didn't I stay here? It's something to think about, but I can guarantee you, we have the staff, educated staff, medical staff here at our facility that I think is fabulous. Of course, I'm a little prejudiced, but that is the truth.
Well, you do know the truth.
Yeah. On Herrin Hospital, the expansions throughout the years, and on the front page, and then page 12, 13, and 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, are some of the progression of the entrances and the new additions to our facility throughout the years. And I'm just going to give you a brief scenario of the timeline of that. In 1914, the building Baker Gardner Hospital was built by Dr. Griff Baker and son Carl. Hospital was purchased by J.T. Black. Hospital name was changed to Herrin Hospital in 1918. 1925, the hospital was purchased by Columbus Brown and Frank Murrah. 1934, Dr. Columbus Brown retired. Dr. Murrah became the sole owner. In 1946, Herrin Hospital was purchased by Southern Illinois Hospital Corporation. In the 1950s, Goodrich Wing was built. In the 1960s, the Memorial expansion was built, which was the second floor over the Goodrich Wing. In 1973, East and West expansion, 48 beds of inpatients was built. That is when they closed 14th Street off and built what's presently there now that is going north and south. In 1978, the Stilt building for obstetrics was built for new labor, delivery, birthing rooms, nursery, and 12 new beds, but the OB closed in 1994. In 1985, the new front of the hospital with waiting rooms, gift garden, chapel was a $3,800,000 expansion that was completed in 1985. In 1992, the second floor was built over the east and west wing, which housed an 8-bed ICU, surgical suites, PACU, endo, ambulatory care, and ambulatory care waiting area. In 2006, the 50,000 square foot addition in front of the hospital, which houses the new medical surgical units with private rooms. It also houses the ancillary services for outpatient rehab, outpatient lab, EKG, dietitians, gift garden, and conference rooms, plus the addition of the healing garden that was made possible with the generosity of the Harrison Bruce Foundation. So, looking at your pictures, this was the 1934 building. This building here was in the 1960s, and this was in front of 14th Street. And you could still actually go through 14th Street, and across from that was the parking lots. Then on picture 13, that's a nighttime picture, a picture I just showed you, but then down at the bottom of it was the 1985 entrance. And then this was the 1992 entrance that was closed. The city of Herrin was graciously let us close Lyra in order to make that expansion. On page 15, when I was looking at these, it was hard for me to believe that page 15 and 16, that was outside of our building. That was during the construction of the 50,000 square foot addition that we have now. Look at the size of the men. You can tell how, the magnitude of the construction was by the tiny little bitty men that were there. Page 17 and 18 was the outcome of that construction. Page 19, 20, 21, and 22, and 23 are the healing garden. I'd like to say a couple of things about the healing garden. This was made possible by a $500,000 donation from the Harrison Bruce Foundation. The healing garden was made possible through the funding of two charitable. Now, where I work, that'd be somebody that took the test. So that's, yeah, we'd all be jumping up and running. I lost my train of thought. The healing garden was made possible through the funding of two charitable foundations. It was Carl Bruce, husband of Julia, and brother-in-law of Fred, who had the vision of all the local benefits a charitable foundation would have and continue to have in the near future. It was was most influential in establishing the Julia Harrison Bruce Foundation. On January 15, 1969, and Fred G. Harrison Foundation was found on January 17, 1969. The Bank of Herrin, the trustees for the Julia Harrison Bruce Foundation, and the Fred G. Harrison Foundation, with Mr. Ed Goodwin as their trust officer, made this possible for us. So I want to thank them again for the generosity of making this possible. I don't know if you've ever had the pleasure of being in our garden, but it is a very serene, peaceful place. The sidewalks are heated, so it was made primarily for our rehab patients. There's many different kinds of surfaces that the therapy employees can go out there to teach them, especially a stroke patient or a head injury, how to walk on different surfaces. So that's predominantly, it's got a small little bridge to teach them how to go up steps, walk across an incline, and you see people out there all the time. It is an extremely peaceful area. I put the picture of this little tree in here because that is my favorite tree that I've ever seen, and I call it the arthritic tree. Number one, the garden was made for our rehab patients. Well, if you look at the tree's limbs and the trunk, they're gnarly and twisted. that probably look like somebody that suffers severely from osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis, and it looks like their little arms are just, full of arthritis. So I call that my little arthritis tree. And that tree was originally there when the building was built around this tree. So I have to put my tree in there. The emergency room. Hope you never have to darken those doors, but if you do, it's one of the best EDs in Southern Illinois. In 1973, when I started working at Herrin Hospital, the emergency entrance for an ambulance was in the alley between the post office and the 1914 building. You came down on a caged elevator a half a floor. You came out of the caged elevator. Dr. Roth's office was over here on the left, and right here on the right was a little counter less than half of this table, and it consisted of 3 stretchers and 2 curtains. And look what we've got now. We just completed a 10,000 square foot emergency room addition. In 1973, the ED was moved out of the basement up to where it was where the east and west patient rooms used to be. In 1975, it moved over to the second building, the east and west building. 1974, they moved across to the new building, which was across 14th Street, that was renovated to accommodate the ED. In 2000, the ED was expanded, and with a new entrance, a new canopy, and a new ambulance service. Then in 2010, the 10,000 square foot addition of the new emergency room was opened, which houses 14 beds, 2 nurses stations, a quiet room, and 2 trauma rooms. And page 25, 26, and 27, 25 is the actual outside of our emergency room. This is when you come into the front of the emergency room to register. And then this is some of the pictures of what the exam rooms look like. The first Teresa can probably vouch for this. When we got to see a sneak peek of the ED, of course we sneak in there all the time to see, the progression of it. The last time that I went in there, it was being cleaned, getting ready for public health inspection, and getting ready to open. And we walked in there, and I stood at the end of that hall, and I have to tell you, I was overcome emotionally. The hospital staff calls it the Green Mile because it's a rather long corridor, and the patient rooms are on both sides of the hallway. And I have to tell you, in 1973, having 3 stretchers and 2 curtains to come to an ED department of that magnitude with the highest quality of equipment, technology, nursing staff, physicians, mid-level providers, it was really overwhelming to me. And I've never been any prouder than I was at that moment seeing, what we had come from in 1973 to present date. Herrin Hospital is an 11-acre campus. These properties include 14th Street, 13th Street, 12th Street, Wirela, Harrison, Oak, and Park Avenue, plus multiple off-site properties. It's Herrin Hospital, the Breast Center, physician office buildings east and west, the Heritage Building, which houses the facilities engineering, quality improvement, health information, case management, plus the entire upstairs of the Heritage Building is off-site conference room area. Fit for Work, Herrin Rehab Clinic, which is on Route 13 and 148, Work Care at Logan Park, and Herrin Hospital Imaging at Logan Park. Herrin Hospital presently employs approximately 825 people. When I started my career at Herrin Hospital, there was less than 100 people that worked there. Herrin as a whole, SIH as a whole, employs over 2,500 individuals. SIH is the second largest employer in Southern Illinois other than SIU. Taking the bed count down out of the 114 beds, we have East Wing, which is a medical surgical unit. The nurse manager of that is Debbie Cash. It's a 21-bed unit. West Wing is the medical surgical unit. The nurse manager is Tara Lanham. It's a 22-bed unit. North Wing is a medical surgical unit. That is also where our bariatric patients are housed. The nurse manager is Melanie Sanders. It's a 24-bed unit. The Rehab Institute is 29 beds. Nancy Hayes is the nurse manager. Our intensive care is an 8-bed closed unit. Tina Wyatt is the nurse manager. Our surgery, ambulatory care, and post-anesthesia care, our ambulatory care is ran by Tanya Jansen, who is the nurse manager. Our ambulatory care has 8 rooms with 5 treatment bays. Our chest pain observation unit is 10 beds and ran by Pam Shedd-Owens. Our hospital also employs 40 other department directors and managers. Herrin Hospital, Southern Illinois Healthcare also consists of Herrin Hospital, Memorial Hospital of Carbondale, St. Joseph's Memorial Hospital, the Center for Medical Arts, SIMS, which is a physician group, Miners Memorial in West Frankfort, Logan Primary Care, and the SIH corporate offices. Next, I want to talk about our fabulous Herrin Hospital Auxiliary. We currently have approximately 125 members. There's the gift garden, the runners, the coverage of the surgical desk. These men and women have donated tens of thousands of hours. They donate approximately 12 to 13,000 hours of their time a year. I don't think there's anything any more precious than you can give someone, or any more valuable than you can give someone than your time. And Teresa can vouch for this. Sometimes it's hard to get our employees to be compliant with coming to work when they're supposed to. And these ladies and gentlemen, I can't even tell you, just do a tremendous, tremendous job at our facility. Since their conception, they have given over $850,000 back to our facility. In the last 5 years, they've given us $300,000 towards our chest pain observation unit to get the absolute best, top-of-the-line cardiac monitoring that there is for that unit. So I want to publicly thank them for this, because we wouldn't be able to do a lot of what we do and get the type of equipment that we would like if it wasn't for these ladies and gentlemen giving us of their time and their money. $850,000 is a lot of sodas, a lot of chips, and a lot of tchotchkes to give back to us. And they do just a fabulous, outstanding job for our facility. I made a picture. Picture 31 is our actual board members that were sworn in March of 2012. Our group is open, our gift garden is open 7 days a week. These ladies from left to right, Sherlyn Carnegie is the president of our auxiliary. Nancy Eisenhower is our treasurer. Mary Fox is our volunteer coordinator. Tanny Fiorina is a member at large. Norma McCulloch is a member at large. Tara Gail Cutsinger is a recording secretary. Bunny Benham is a member at large. Norma Stanley is the corresponding secretary. Marge Harmon is a member at large. Luann Lane is the vice president for membership. And Sharon Nance, who is not pictured, is the vice president for community relations. We have started tens of 20s of new programs at our hospital. But in the recent year or so, we've started a joint camp, and I'd like to tell you a little bit about that joint camp. Joint Camp is a comprehensive planned course of treatment for patients undergoing total joint replacement at Herrin Hospital. The program is designed to directly involve the patient in the direct plan of care pre- and post-operatively. Patients are included on discharge plans and arrangements before they even are admitted to the hospital to help aid in the smooth transition once they're discharged home, whether that be at home with outpatient therapy, home health, acute rehab, or to a local skilled care facility. The program is set up to help alleviate any anxiety of the unknown, and it gives the patient the time to get any and all questions answered before the surgery with the Joint Camp Program Coordinator, who is Stephanie Banks. Each patient will be enrolled in a Joint Camp pre-op education class before their surgery, and they will go through an intense physical and occupational therapy while at the hospital. This program was developed in stages in May of 2011, with the program being initiated in January of 2012. The program directly involves the patients, their family, with the care by using a team of physicians, PAs, nurses, case managers, physical therapy, and other specialists, along with the orthopedic program coordinator, to provide them with the essential tools and information education needed to achieve a quick and safe recovery. Goals of the program are to decrease the length of stay to 3 days, in some cases 2 days, improve patient satisfaction, patient outcomes, physician satisfaction, but our main goal is to assist the patient back to his or her normal daily activity before they lost their independence to joint pain. Since the program started in January, and by the end of June, we have seen a total of 70 patients thus far who have gone through the Joint Camp. Our results have been outstanding, with an overall average length of stay of 2.6. Now you have to understand, 10 years ago, you had an average length, Kelly, 7 days, 10 days?
7 days.
7 days, and that was cut down to a 2.6. That's just how far advanced that we've come in not that many years. This helps reduce the surgical site infections and readmissions. Once the patient is discharged to home, the Joint Camp Coordinator is in contact with the patient 1 to 3 weeks after their scheduled surgery to do follow-up phone calls and to answer any questions that the patients may have, to make sure that that patient has all the required information, tools, medications, follow-up doctor's appointments that were scheduled, etc. Anything that is needed to continue their care at home. The Joint Camp has a total of 5 physicians who participate in the program, and I made you a little flyer for that. It's Dr. Brett Miller, who heads up the team, Dr. Brett Miller, Dr. Roland Barr, Dr. Mike Davis, Dr. John Wood, and Dr. Bob Gold. And we're very happy to announce that starting in August, we have a new orthopedic surgeon that's going to be predominantly at our hospital, and his name is Dr. Danes. I think it's Brian. Yeah, Brian Danes. And he starts, and he's going to be involved in the Joint Camp, and he's predominantly going to be at our facility doing this. So we're very excited about having him there. Chest pain, our chest pain unit. Herrin Hospital has become an accredited chest pain unit in 2008. At that time, we were the first hospital in Southern Illinois to reach this accomplishment south of Belleville. STAT Heart program started in 2007. Herrin Hospital was the first community hospital to start the program and has set the standards for heart attack care for all the area community hospitals. The program currently has 10 community hospitals that participate in this process. In 2010, Herrin Hospital joined the Action Registry and American Heart Association Mission Lifeline program to share the data and their successful patient outcomes. In 2011, Herrin Hospital was one of the only referral hospitals in the entire state of Illinois to receive the Bronze Award due to our data. In 2012, Herrin Hospital advanced to the Silver Award and remains the only referral community hospital in the entire state of Illinois with this recognition. As we strive to raise the bar and continue with the success of our chest pain program, we are moving towards the Gold Award in 1913. We have a rehabilitation department at Herrin. Dr. Terry Glennon is the head of that. It's partnered with the Rehab Institute of Chicago, which for the last 23 years has been the #1 rehab institute in the United States. It's a 29-bed unit with 3 full-time physiatrists. The third one she's a female, and she's coming in March too, Dr. Maya. And we're just thrilled to death to have her because we recruited for several years to try to find, the right fit, and she'll be here in August. The other program that we started is the bariatric program. Herrin's new Weight Life Loss Center offers a specially trained team of healthcare experts to support the bariatric surgical patient through a life-changing journey. All hospital staff receive bariatric-specific training and orientation to provide quality patient care to our post-surgical patients. 2 fellowship-trained bariatric and advanced laparoscopic surgeons, full-time bariatric program coordinators, specialized post-surgical nursing staff, 3 full-time registered dietitians that work only with the bariatric patients, 6 private bariatric hospital rooms, pre- and post-operative support and educational services, 4 support group meetings per month for the patient and family and friends, and the bariatric program got its first surgery on February 11th of 2009. Since 2009, there has been over 300 patients that have received this surgery. So, there's one last thing that I want to share with you, and I don't know if any of you know this, but the August 2012 Consumer Reports came out, and it was a ranking of hospital standards in the United States. And I got a phone call and said, Herrin Hospital, it was from a doctor. And he called me and he said, you need to go get the consumer reports for August of 2012. And I'm like, well, I read that. I read People magazine. I don't read consumer reports. So I went and got it, and he goes, well, it is outstanding, and you need to go get it. So I went and got it, and Herrin Hospital in the entire state of Illinois was ranked number 11 in patient safety. I'm going to clap. Infection control. There was 2 others, and I can't remember it.
Something about that scanning.
But in all the areas, we were number 11. Do you know how many hospitals there are in the state of Illinois? A lot. And we ranked number 11. So that is something that we're getting ready to celebrate.
And best in our region, Kathy.
And and we're number 1.
We're over everybody in this area.
Well, I didn't want to be.
Not just.
No,
Let's do
I
it.
didn't want to be too gloating.
Let's do it.
Yes, yeah. And we were number 1 in Southern Illinois, in the entire region of Southern Illinois.
Even hospitals larger than us.
Even, yeah, I mean, the hospitals in Cape Girardeau, Barnes Jewish, SLU, the hospitals in Mount Vernon, the hospitals in Paducah, we outranked all of them. So we are very, very proud of that. And, as I said, we save lives at Herrin Hospital. We have some of the best, it's some of the best nursing managers, department directors. They have compassion. They will sit there and hold your hand if it's needed. The administrative team, which I am fortunately a member of, we make rounds. We're going to start making rounds on the patients to go in and actually sit down with the patient at the bedside to ask them how they're, how's your care? What can we do differently? How can we capture your dissatisfaction, if there happens to be any, before you leave that hospital? So, we're very, very fortunate. We were out without an administrator for a while, and Terrence Farrell in October of 2011 became our hospital administrator. He's from Pikesville. He's originally from New York and came to us from Pikesville, Kentucky. And he has made a tremendous impact in our facility. and he was wanting to be here today, and due to scheduling conflicts, wasn't able to be here. But he's just very proud to be with us. We couldn't be any happier to have him as our leader. And I know I'm very partial, and I know I've talked probably too long, but that hospital is my life. It's my family. And everyone in this room has to know, you have a problem. We are there to help you. All you have to do is ask the operator, connect you with Kathy Cerruti. I'm in and out of the office a lot. I have a message on my phone when I'm available, when I'm not available, but I can guarantee you, it may take me a couple of days, but I will get back to you. I will get back to you. And Mr. Farrell, he has an open door policy, the administrator. Leanne Jones, our director, our nurse exec. You know, we have a lot of strength at our facility. And you have to understand, you know, it wasn't too many years ago, you know, our hospital, there was a possibility of it being closed down. What would that have done to this community? Our surrounding areas, we get people from Franklin County, Johnson County, Saline County, Gallatin County, Polk County. We have a very diverse group of people that come to our facility. So I just want to thank you for having me here today. I hope I didn't bore you too much. But if you have any questions, you know, that I can help you with, I would love to answer any of them that you may have.
Kathy,
Yes,
I don't have a question,
yes.
but, you know, I worked in the lab, and when I started, the lab was probably the fourth of the size of this room.
Yeah.
And
And it was in the basement.
it was in the basement next to Dr. Ross.
Well, no, not anymore. We've kind of moved up a little.
But it was, like you said, it was a family
Yeah.
with the doctors, the x-ray techs, the lab techs, the people who draw your blood, and CS and the other things. But when I started, there were only 3 lab techs, and I was a lab aide, and I got paid $1 an hour, and the candy stripers got paid 50 cents an hour. But I worked under 3 pathologists, Dr. Rossiter and Dr. Thompson, who really brought our laboratory into the best from probably Vandalia south. And he was just a fabulous physician, and he ran it like a ship. That's what he said. When he arrived, he said, because he had been in service, and then not so Dr. Jones, but anyway, under 3, and the lab grew 3 times while I was there. And so I too have a lot of pride.
And as you know, every time you come in the hospital, it's growing. There's always something under construction. There's always architects around that are looking at what, you know, you see the steel that was hung, you know, where the outside of the ICU for an expansion when we're ready. You know, there's talks in to expand the surgical department. It's, you know, it's never ending, and it just keeps growing and growing. So,
I have a question.
yes, ma'am.
The tunnel that leads from the former basement,
Yes.
is the number one, is the tunnel still there? Because
Yes.
I haven't been there. Does it flood? And is
No.
there a magic opening to it? There used to be a legend in town when you put the tunnel under there was a trap door or something that led.
I wish.
Larry Hughes always used to laugh.
I wish. No, there's no trap door, but you know, when it was first built, there was a problem with flooding. And they finally got that taken care of. So there is, now, of course, you know, when we have a ridiculous amount of rain, there may be a tiny little bit of seepage, but it's taken care of, and they've got it taken to where it's not like a waterfall. You know, if you've ever been through that tunnel, there's a mural on it of under the sea. And sometimes when we've had rain, it does look like you're under the sea because it looks like it's a natural waterfall coming through one side of it. But that has been taken care of. Anything? Yes, ma'am.
I had a neat experience here. It was the day of, I think it was the day of the tornado in Harrisburg, and we had a storm here.
Yes.
And my husband and I were about to leave, and they said we couldn't leave, put us in the hallway and in some chairs.
Were you in the hospital at the time?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry. And pretty soon they said, well, we're going to take you downstairs now. So we went downstairs to a big conference room.
Yep.
They brought in bottled water for everybody. And then 5 minutes later, they brought in bags of chips for
Snacks.
everybody, any kind of chips that you wanted. And then they brought in big bowls of fruit for everybody. It was about lunchtime, so it was a pretty good idea, but I was impressed.
Thank you very much. We do try very hard, when things like that happen. We were out trying to command, we were in the command center to, kind of direct everybody as to where to go because, when something like that happens, it's rather chaotic. And since the May 8th storm a couple of years ago, I've worked there many years and nobody ever came to the hospital for safety. Since the May 8th storm, we probably had, I'd say, people coming in, I'd say at least 125, 150 people that came to our facility to seek shelter for the storm. So, and we were there and we obviously, we took care of people and would not let them go until we got an all clear sign. So,
About the time that happened at Joplin, the hospital in Joplin.
Yeah.
We had to evacuate, move our patients to the hallways, get them into a safe place. And that evening, we used the cafeteria instead of the conference room, and we had almost 200 people downstairs that came in seeking shelter. So it's been a really a place where people feel safe. They feel like they can come and find shelter.
and you don't think about this, but you have to move those patients out of their rooms. And the people, in the ICU the people that are on ventilators, it takes, a lot of manpower to get those patients out of those rooms and get them in the hallway for their safety. So, you don't think about that behind the scene things, but, and we have a code that, in fact, my phone went off last night several times for the thunderstorm. And, we have a disaster plan in effect that if something like that happens, what you're supposed to do and how you're supposed to react. And so, we're always going to be there. We're always going to be there for you.
Kathy?
Yes, ma'am.
I want to brag because you talk about family. It's your family. Well, Dr. Murrah's picture that's in here, he was a part of my family.
Really?
My grandfather, Herrin, John Herrin,
Uh-huh.
his mother, Fatima Herrin, they were Brown. Dr. Murrah's mother was Gertrude Brown. There's a window at the First Presbyterian Church with her name on it.
Oh, my goodness.
They were, I can't count how many, but when he bought the hospital with Columbus Brown was a brother to Gertrude Murrah. So he was an uncle and an aunt who bought the hospital.
Oh, my goodness, I
And,
didn't realize
Frank
that.
Murrah also had a brother, Charles, between Mary's Restaurant and the house where Ed and Sam had their, that was Dr. Murrah's home. And in between those two places was a little bungalow that looked like it was lost between those two houses where Charles Murrah lived, Dr. Murrah's brother, who was a prominent lawyer.
Oh,
here in
my
town.
goodness.
And then Julia Bruce, who has done so many things for the town, especially the beautiful garden, and it is lovely. And I've seen patients out there
Yeah.
that were really enjoying it.
Well, that
Julia
garden
is a-
probably
Julia is a
would not,
distant cousin.
that garden would not have been possible because of the amount of $500,000 we would have had to put that towards something.
And
So-
I can't brag, but I was born in the Herrin Hospital. I was born at 801 North 13th Street where I live. But I do recall going to the entrance, right close to the alley between the
Yep.
hospital and post office, going down these steps to
Yep.
Dr. Murrah's, and there were a lot of times we didn't get out till 7:30 or 8 o'clock. And you mentioned Josie Goodrich's sister,
Yes.
did everything around the hospital. Well, she also acted as a receptionist for Dr. Murrah down there too. A beautiful lady,
Yeah.
beautiful lady.
Well, that's good, thank you.
And my first experience, I guess in sixth grade, I had pneumonia in the hospital. I had pneumonia. And I forget how many days I was in there, but my mother and father kept me in for 2 months.
Oh, my goodness. Well,
And, but
we've
I
come a
can't
long
brag, my
way.
daughter was born. Becky was born in 53.
We've come a long way, ladies and gentlemen.
And I remember you as a little kid. You and Jane will attend the kindergarten. I'm very proud of you, Kathy.
Oh, thank you very much.
We got the
I'm from Mercer, she's about 6 years old, maybe younger than that.
I've gotten a little better with age, haven't
I'm very proud to call you my neighbor, a sister's neighbor.
I? Well, is there any other questions that I can,
You've been your Jesse man
Jesse,
for
maybe,
the
yes?
long-time nurse.
Yes.
This operating room on page 4, she has described that to me. And
Really?
it's one of the first, she assisted Dr. Murrah in one of the first surgeries.
Well,
And this was her life. She had no-
we've come an awful long way from that to where we are now.
You better believe it.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Carl Goodwin has a gift as you go out. It's from Herrin Hospital. Pass it wherever. So be sure and grab that as you walk out. It's from Kathy.
And then,